Kawczynski.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. In the 9 years I've been a Member of Parliament for Shrewsbury, of course you come across a lot of emotional issues with constituents, but I think one of the most emotional experiences I faced was meeting with a dairy farmer in the village of Snail Beach in the southernmost part of my constituency. I went to see him and spent the day on his farm and saw at first hand the terrible suffering that he had been through with all his cattle being taken away for slaughter. We sat at his kitchen table afterwards and over tea he started to cry and I joined in. It was such an emotional experience seeing a grown man cry and seeing the constant emotional psychological impact that it had on him and also on the many children. Let's not forget that in many of our Shropshire farms, it's not just the farmer, it's also his family, and the children are seeing these cows being taken away for slaughter. Has a terrible emotional impact on them. That's why I set up in the last Parliament the all-party group for dairy farmers. And I have to say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we had over 170 members of Parliament who joined that. We had an excellent secretariat, the RABDF, and a lot of members of Parliament, cross-party from all political parties, joined that campaigning group. After a whole year of taking evidence, we didn't have many resources at our disposal, but we met with many organisations from around the country who came to speak to us in the House of Commons, not just from this country, but also from France and Ireland and other parts of the United Kingdom. And after taking evidence for a year, we came to two conclusions. One was that there needed to be a limited cull of badgers, and two, that there ought to be a grocery adjudicator which would support farmers going forward and deal with some of the more pernicious ways that supermarkets were treating them. I'm very pleased that there has been movement on these two very important issues, because when I brought it to the then Secretary of State for Death Threat at the time, David Miliband, he was completely derisory at both of those suggestions. In Shropshire, Mr. Deputy Speaker, last year we killed 2,125 cows as a result of bovine tuberculosis. And although the figures have come down in certain parts of the United Kingdom, as has already been stated, that is an increase on the previous year from 1,976. So in Shropshire, we are continuing to see this problem increase throughout our farmers. And at the end of last year, 401 herds in the county were subject to government movement restrictions. I would like to say in the most strongest possible way to the Minister who is here, a statement from the Shropshire NFU Vice Chairman, Mr. Richard Yates, as reported in today's Shropshire Star. He said this: "A vet said to me, there's two types of farmer in Shropshire, those that have TB and those that are going to get it." And that was like a knife in the back to me. He also went on to say that he goes to market a lot and speaks to many of other Shropshire farmers, and that he is staggered by talking to them at market just how many farmers are affected by this terrible disease. He has identified correctly that we are spending over £100 million a year in compensation to farmers. Now, clearly, that is a staggering amount of money, and I don't think anybody in this chamber would want £100 million to be spent needlessly. Clearly, there are much greater priorities for this funding to be spent in the health service, in education, and all the other things that we want to provide for our constituents. And that is why it's so important that we have a consensus in this chamber. And let's try to get that consensus. I'm really encouraged that there's been talk about some sort of compromise or consensus, because clearly we have been talking about this issue for many, many years, and we do not appear to be any closer today than we were in years gone by to finally grappling with this terrible disease. Mr. Yates goes on to say, the Shropshire NFU Vice Chairman, he wants the preservation order taken off badgers and to allow farmers and gamekeepers to deal with the problem. He says, I have a set in nearly every field. Badgers are out of control. You never see hedgehogs anymore, nor any ground nesting birds, because the badgers are killing them. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I have met with the Shropshire Wildlife Trust on many occasions. They are the largest organisation in Shropshire with over 6,000 members, and of course their symbol is a badger. And they have taken me on several occasions to go and with them and to see badgers in the wildlife and to look at sets. I understand the passion that exists on both sides, but I just wanted to speak in this debate, and I wanted the Minister to hear that if he believes, and if his officials believe, that culls of badgers are necessary going forward in trying to grapple with this appalling disease, then I think he must show the courage to continue with that policy, because all I care about is to stop this ghastly disease destroying our very important cattle and dairy industries in Shropshire, which we are so dependent on and which I will do everything to try to protect.